So real quick, my name is Eric Williams, and I'm and you'll pardon me, I'm taking these off because my glasses, the stuff they use to darken them, gets all scratched up, and now it's look like I'm looking through a fog. So I can't see you now, but at least you are clearly blurry, as opposed to being scratched up blurry. So my name is Eric Williams, and I'm an attorney. I'm from here, so you go down to Finkel, right? Actually, if you don't have to go down to Finkel, go down to Puritan, bust a right, and keep going till you get to Marlowe, and that's where I grew up. So right down the road from here, right? And growing up where I grew up, back then everybody either worked at the plan or worked for the city. So we had a community, a neighborhood. So to me, that's always been something that was important. So grew up here, went to Cass, went to University of Michigan, went off to Cambridge, did my master's, and then came back and worked for Focus Hope. Then met the wonderful woman who is now my ex-wife, and the mother of my 3 beautiful children, and moved to New York. Went to law school at Columbia, and I wanted to go be a public defender. And June, that's her name, she said, "That pays what?" She's like, "Nah, I'm sorry, baby, no, you're not going to be a public defender." So I went to work for a big law firm called Winston & Strawn. And my first client was General Electric that had actually broken a natural resource. They had dumped tons of PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, into the Hudson River in these metal containers, which if you put metal in water, you kind of know what happens. And so the question becomes, do you dredge it? Do you leave it there? Whatever. And I'm like, wow, I'm helping them avoid having to pay the money that they should pay to fix the Hudson River. Right. Like, wow, I'm a bad person. So then I went to go work for my next client, working at Winston & Strawn, was Philip Morris. And so, at a certain point, I'm like, I am a handmaid of the devil, basically, is what I am doing. So eventually I made my way back here to Detroit and took a fairly substantial pay cut, but I went to go teach at Wayne State University Law School. I loved it. I worked with small businesses, helping them get started. I'm like, I'm kind of doing the Lord's work. And then I moved on. Now I work with the Detroit Justice Center, right? And it's great. Our objective is to make Detroit a more just city. And we begin with the thought that you can't make this a place more just without addressing our legal system, which means that we provide a lot of services to those who are either returning citizens or have been impacted by our judicial system. So either they are the relative, the spouse, the children of somebody who is either currently or formerly incarcerated, right? So real talk, my salary has gone like this, but my happiness has gone like this. And June says, it's a good thing we divorced now, because I don't know if I can deal with you being happy, because I just starve, right? So, I mean, I understand where she's coming from. I got 2 kids currently in college, so I do feel her pain. But, at a certain point, you gotta go, I have to do what's right. And corporate responsibility ultimately comes down to doing what's right, right? But sometimes, while what's right might seem clear, how to get there seems much less clear. So I work for the Detroit Justice Center, started by a woman named Amanda Alexander, and if any of you have ever met her, she is like a happy, happy, joy, joy kind of lady, and I'm not a happy, happy, joy, joy kind of cat, ever, right? I don't smile, I mess up every picture, like with the meme mug, I cannot help it. It is not something I do naturally. My face hurts from being around her, like the first week I was working, I was like, I realized I had been smiling, okay? She told me, this is your job. She said, you get up every day and think of cool ways to make Detroit a more just place from an economic perspective. She didn't say do cool things, she said think up cool ways. So when you start thinking about corporate responsibility, when you start thinking about personal responsibility, your responsibility as an entrepreneur, what you should expect from the businesses that you're dealing with, you say, I want to do the right thing, but maybe we should take a step back and think, what's a better way, a different way, an outside the box way to do the things we think are right? So for example, there's an organization on the east side of Detroit, And they live in an area that is about to be gentrified. And they know this because all the public amenities, like parks and roads, are suddenly getting a lot of attention from the city they didn't seem to get before, right? There's a vibrant, sort of commercial corridor near there that they anticipate will probably suddenly start changing. Like they'll be serving like a lot more, aioli on the food and stuff like that. And perhaps not surprisingly, they've suddenly had trouble getting properties from the land bank. Number one sign gentrification is coming. So they thought, what can we do to maintain, right? What can we do to maintain affordable housing in this area? And they came to us, and one of the things we're looking at is limited equity co-ops, community land trust, right? Looking at getting businesses to remain competitive, because even if they can't, at this juncture, buy the building that they're in, they can do things like buying clubs. They can get together and think, wait, we are not competitors, really. There's no reason that we can't consolidate our back office operations. Everything from, let's say, accounting, to purchasing, to HR. These are things that they can do collectively, right? And by doing these things collectively, by strengthening their own businesses, by increasing the relationships, as you mentioned earlier, with the people on their block, with the other people doing business in their community, they're strengthening the community, right? And then you'll see that if the strongest businesses in your neighborhood are from your neighborhood, they tend to hire folks from your neighborhood, provide services that are important to the people in your neighborhood, and then begin investing even outside of what they need for their business because they care about the neighborhood, because they're part of the neighborhood, right? So the key for you is, one, don't just be a really crappy person. I mean, if you're just a crappy person, there's nothing we can say up here that is going to make any difference as far as how you contribute, right? I mean, I'm sorry. And actually, statistically, probably 5 out of 10 of you really are, okay? So, I'm just going by personal experience. Half of you are probably really crappy people. It's sad but true.
Was it right? You or your ex-wife was a crappy one?
Her nickname for me was Rat Bastard, but it was said with love.
You smile.
No, because it's funny, because she just called me that this morning. We were talking about my job. And but she says it so lovingly, I just can't. June is great. But once you get past that initial barrier, okay, think outside the box. Think about ways you can contribute to the place where you are doing business, okay? Your customers shouldn't just be people that come in and give you money and walk out the door, right? One of the reasons corporations tend to be crappy entities is because the people who run them have an obligation, a fiduciary duty, to maximize the revenue that the company generates. And when they give money, it's not because they feel out of the goodness of their heart they should be giving money. It is because they have determined that it is marketing. By doing this, we will actually increase the amount of revenue that we generate, because otherwise they'd be facing shareholder suits all over the place. Think about it, right? Shareholder suit over every little thing. I know, because I used to do a lot of shareholder suits. Again, more work for the devil. So I have 1 minute and 11 seconds left. The thing I want to leave you with is this. There are times you really have to be fearless. And when you're running your own business, it's scary because you are putting so much into it, and you are walking a tightrope with no safety net, right? Even if you have, a spouse, a significant other, somebody who's going to make sure you're not homeless, you're worried about, credit, the kids, the car note, insurance, all these things, and there's nobody to sort of catch you if you fall. So you are working 24/7, 365, and it is so tempting to do something that you go, well, if I had more money, I wouldn't do this, but because it's so hard for me and I'm scraping by, okay, I'm gonna do it this once. Don't do it. All right?
Okay.
If you have a nonprofit, be careful of conflicts of interest. Okay? If you have a for-profit, make sure you set up a real barrier between the business entity and yourself. These are the things that actually make a difference between being successful as a business and finding yourself in jail. These are also the things that kind of are, how can I say this, indicators whether or not you're a crappy person or not. So I leave you with this: don't be a crappy person. Thank you.